I spun a wheel of the 4 major Philly sports teams, and then I spun another wheel of years, and we landed on the 1977 Phillies. So I went and I learned as much as I could about them, and now I'm going to tell you what I learned. So let's learn about the 1977 Phillies together. I am in probably the nicest setup I've had for these videos in the history of all Philly all the time. I have my own apartment now. Thank you, everyone. We filmed in my parents' basement for a very long time, and then I was filming basically in a corner for about a year, and now we have a couch, we have a light, so this is great. I feel like we're off to a very good start here. But anyway, today we're talking about the 1977 Philadelphia Phillies, courtesy of The Wheels. Given the Phillies' rough history, we'll say, there's a lot of losing seasons in the Phillies' history. They have the most losses in baseball history as a franchise. This was a great pull by The Wheel to start this off. I hope to do a lot of these videos going over and learning about historic teams from the past, and this is one of the best teams that we have to offer in Philly. So we're starting off, I guess, on a high note. I don't know if this sets the bar too high, and then we'll end up with a bunch of bad teams later in other spins, but let's enjoy this for now. The 1977 Philadelphia Phillies, considered by some to be the greatest Phillies team of all time, which is a very high bar. Not everyone agrees on that, but they're up there. This is, we can safely say, one of the greatest Phillies teams of all time. So before we get into 1977, let's start with 1976, the year prior, where they made it to the playoffs. Cool, seems great. They hadn't made it to the playoffs since 1950. So this was a great start. They had been through a huge drought from 1951 to 1975. They had had 9 winning seasons. So Philly fans were going through it. But 1976, the team finally came together and made the playoffs, and that was huge. They won 101 games, first postseason berth since 1950, and then they were promptly swept by the Big Red Machine. The Cincinnati Reds of the 70s were a very dominant team, especially the early 70s. They won back-to-back World Series. In 1976, they swept the Phillies in the NLCS, and then they swept the Yankees in the World Series. So that was a very good team. No shame in getting swept by that team. The Phillies actually had leads in all 3 games that they lost. Obviously, they didn't hold on to those leads, but they played well against a dominant team. So this was a step in the right direction. 101 wins. How could you not be feeling good about that? And then we go into the 1977 season. So the main guys on this team were Mike Schmidt, of course, MVP candidate every year, 40-plus home run hitter almost every year for the Phillies, arguably the greatest Philly of all time. Steve Carlton won the Cy Young and is arguably the greatest pitcher in Phillies history. He was probably one of the best pitchers in the game at this time. You also have Larry Bowa, the shortstop, became a fan favorite over the years. Wasn't considered the best player, but really came into form with the Phillies and obviously was great and loved by the fans. Greg Luzinski, nicknamed the Bull, huge power hitter, very large man, probably would have been a DH in today's game. They didn't have the DH in the NL back then, so Greg Luzinski. All of those guys were all-stars in 1976. Dave Cash was also an all-star in 76 for the Phillies. He left in free agency. So those are our main guys, the top players on this team. So they come into the year, they just won 101 games. They're feeling great. They lose their first 4 games of the 1977 season, and they didn't get over 500 until mid-May when they beat the Padres on May 13th, and then they stayed over 500 for good after they beat the Astros on May 21st. They were 18-17 towards the end of May. That was when they got over 500, and they stayed there for the rest of what would be an electric season. In June, before the trade deadline, they added Bake McBride, who would become a key bench piece, but then also their leadoff hitter at the end of the season. And in the playoffs, he was their leadoff hitter. He would hit .339 in 1977. So I would say pretty good trade acquisition in Bake McBride. This was an offensive team. Their power hitters, they had Mike Schmidt, they had Greg Luzinski in the middle of the lineup, both hit over 40 home runs, but they also hit for great average. Mike Schmidt, like who I said was the best player on the team, had the lowest batting average on the team. Your best player had the lowest batting average, so it was a very well-rounded team that hit for high average. I thought that was crazy when I learned that Mike Schmidt on the 1977 Phillies had the lowest batting average of the starters. So as expected, the Phillies were very good this year, just like they were in 76, but because of that slower start and the Chicago Cubs getting off to a really hot start, they were not first place in the East for a while. On June 1st, they were 6.5 games back of the Cubs. So not a huge deficit, but that's substantial. That's more than a series worth. It's tough to gain ground in the baseball season sometimes. You need to go on a run. And go on a run is exactly what they did. They won 13 straight games in August. They lost on August 1st, and then they won 13 games in a row after that. They ended August with a record of 81-50, which put them not only first in the East, but first in the entire NL. They went on a tear in August, and that catapulted them into first place, and they would remain there and end the season there. The Cubs fell off a cliff. They were 9.5 back of the Phillies by the time we ended August, which is a crazy fall off. But that's how that 77 team really kicked it into gear, was in August, particularly with a 13-game winning streak. And they closed out August with a 9-inning performance from Steve Carlton. He got the win in a 1-run complete game to close out what was an amazing August for this team. They would clinch the East, which meant an automatic playoff berth. Back then, it was the East and the West. If you won the National League East, you were going to the NLCS and you would play the champion of the National League West, and that was the playoffs. Playoffs were much smaller back then, so you go straight to the NLCS. So they won the East on September 27th. It was their 98th win of the year. They beat the Cubs, who again, as we said, fallen off, so kind of fitting. They won 15-9. Mike Schmidt homered, which you would expect, but also Larry Christensen homered. Who was that, you ask? He was a pitcher. He was a very good pitcher, but this is back when pitchers were still hitting. Larry Christensen hit a grand slam in this game, which I just thought was pretty cool. He came up there and not only hit a grand slam, it was an opposite field grand slam. He took a ball the opposite way, not pulled, just raw opposite field power from your young starting pitcher, Larry Christensen, as the Phillies won 15-9. That was his 3rd home run of the season. He was hitting bombs. 3 home runs in a season from a pitcher that's pretty crazy. So shout out to Larry Christensen. That was a fun nugget that I found when learning about this game. When they clinched the division, that was part of it. Larry Christensen grand slam. This was the good old days. The Mets and the Braves were really bad this year. Same can't be said about current times, but you know, it was good to look at these standings and see them way down there. Really enjoyed that. So the team made the playoffs as expected. They won 101 games. Again, this was the first time that they had the best record in the league since 1950. If you're doing the math, that is 27 years. That's a long time. Rough drought, like we said. They did make it to the playoffs in 76, like we mentioned, but they didn't win. They got swept by the Reds. So that meant that the Phillies still had not won a playoff game since 1915. That's a really long drought. From 1915 to 1977, no playoff wins. So yeah, the Phillies went through a real rough stretch. That is 62 years. So they're going into the playoffs, and they really want to win a playoff game. They kind of surprised people a little bit the year before, and now they're back in the NLCS, a little bit of revenge, but it's not against the same team. It is not against the Cincinnati Reds. It is against the Los Angeles Dodgers. That is your 1977 NLCS matchup, and the Phillies are favored. Phillies won the most games in the league. They're back in the NLCS. They are favored to win this series. It is a best of 5, so the first team to win 3 games. The format was they play 2 in LA and then 3 in Philly. Different than the way it is now, but that's how it was then. So the big thing was, can they get 1 in LA? And they did that. They took game 1 in LA. So that's huge. Winning game 1 in a 5-game series, super beneficial. They won that one, and then they dropped game 2, but it's like, hey, we're fine. We needed the 1. We got the split. Now we head back to Philly. We're going to get maximum 3 games there, and the Dodgers would have to beat us twice in Philly. And the Phillies have huge home field advantage because they had the best home record in the NL in 1977. They were 60-21. So they're feeling great. The series is tied 1-1. Everything else is going to be in Philly. You just got to win 2 games in Philly, where you won 60 in the regular season. So we head to game 3, and this is the most talked about game of the 1977 Phillies team. This is the defining game of this team. They go up 5-3. Large part of that is that they get 3 bases loaded walks. That's how they scored 3 of their runs. The Dodgers were really struggling. The crowd got into it. And so the Phillies take the lead. They're up 5-3 in the 9th inning. They get 2 outs. They have a 99% chance of winning this game. I'm going to throw up a chart here of win probability for the plays that happen here, because the Phillies sit at 99%. I bet if it could show more, it was probably like 99.8% chance that they win this game. They're down. Dodgers are down to their last out. They're in Philly. And then Vic DeVio, I believe is how it's pronounced, Vic DeVio comes up and he bunts. It's a nice little bunt. He gets on first. All right, that's fine. Runner on first. He's not in scoring position. You're up 2 runs, so not too worried. And then a fly ball is hit and it goes over Greg Luzinski's head. Now, why is Greg Luzinski in left field? That's the question that a lot of people were asking. He was not good at defense, like I mentioned before. He would have been a DH, big guy, not the fastest, hit for power. He was in left field, and the ball just kept carrying, and it went over his head. And that decision to leave him in left field has been questioned for a long time because of what happens next. Davey Lopes comes up with 2 outs. Run scores on that play. So it's now 5-4. Davey Lopes comes up. He hits a ground ball. It deflects off of Mike Schmidt. Larry Boa, by some miracle, snags it barehanded and fires it to first. And Davey Lopes is called safe. And it is one of the most controversial calls in Philadelphia history. I don't know if I can say sports history. If it was in the World Series, maybe, because it was the NLCS, maybe it didn't get as much attention. But what would have been the 3rd and final out, giving the Phillies a 2-1 lead in the series, instead is a tie ball game with a runner on first. Lopes would steal second and then score on a single, giving the Dodgers the lead 6-5, and the Phillies' win probability has fallen off a cliff. So they're now down. They go to the bottom of the 9th. They don't go 1-2-3 because they get hit by pitch, but they only put 1 runner on, and the Dodgers take game 3 in stunning fashion. And that momentum really carried over into game 4, where the Phillies were just flat. It was a dreary, rainy day. The Dodgers won 4-1. The Phillies did out-hit the Dodgers, but they walked 7 of them. And allowing 7 walks to your opponent is never going to be good. So that game 3 really just took the wind out of the sails of Philadelphia and out of the Phillies, and the Dodgers capitalized and won Game 4 and headed to the World Series, taking out the Phillies in both games played in Philly where they were supposed to have the advantage. They lost 2 games in a row to get eliminated in pretty heartbreaking fashion. And the main focus of that is that Davey Lopes controversial, was he really safe? Was he out? Larry Boa, I'm sure to this day, claims that he was out. He was the most adamant about it. Mike Schmidt agreed that he thought he was out, but was more on the side of, even if he was, we got to go with the umpire's call. Like, we can't let that define the whole series for us. The typical answer that you want your leader to give of accountability. But Boa was sure that he was out and that they had been screwed, and a lot of people felt that way as well. But that's how it was back in the day. No replay, bad calls happen, and that one has gone down in Phillies history as one of the most unfortunate calls against the Phillies. Literally changed the game. So that's the 1977 Phillies. An amazing team, a great roster, performed great in the regular season, and then just couldn't get it done in the playoffs at home. Kind of like the current iteration of the team, unfortunately. So I don't know if that's good or bad that it reminds you of that group. I would say the good is that this group, that main core, did eventually win a World Series. So there's still hope for current day that despite their past playoff fails and shortcomings like this team had, they did in 1980 get over the hump and win one. So this Phillies team, maybe they still can. We'll see, no guarantees, but maybe we'll get 1980 Phillies on the wheel sometime and we'll talk about that. I don't know what to call this, just like recap summary, but that doesn't sound as good. Just some fun other tidbits of where this team falls in the history of the Phillies. They had 4 relievers with ERAs under 3. Garber, Reed, Brusar, who was a rookie, and McGraw. So an elite bullpen. They hit 186 home runs, which was the most in team history at the time. And it was so many that record stood until 2004. So they hit the most home runs in team history by a wide margin. It took a while for that record to be broken. What were the 1977 Phillies? If you had to summarize them, what were they about? This was a power hitting team that scored a bunch of runs. Obviously had Steve Carlton at the top of the rotation, and then they just hit a bunch, scored a bunch of runs on you, and the bullpen came in and locked it down most of the time. So that was this team's formula for success. That's how they won their first playoff game since 1915. So there was that progress. They didn't win in 76. They won one in 1977, but still, overall, in the moment, a very disappointing season because they all thought, and all the fans thought, that this team could have and should have won the World Series that year. The Dodgers would go on to lose to the Yankees in the World Series. Phillies felt like they could have won, but they didn't. They still go down as historically one of the greatest Phillies teams ever. And this is a really fun team to learn about. There's always a lot of stories about this group of the Phillies from like the mid 70s to the mid 80s, that kind of core of guys. There's a lot of fun characters there. And I knew that they were good before 1980 and winning the World Series. I did not realize how good this 1977 team was. I didn't know that they were like top 3, top 5 greatest Phillies teams of all time. So that was pretty cool for me to learn about. I learned that this is when they added Big McBride, that they had the best record in the league. So yeah, 1977 Phillies, very, very fun team. Also, didn't know that they still had Phil and Phyllis as their like official logo in 1977. I thought that was an older thing. They switched over to either the Phillies script or the Phillies P. No, they still had that full image of Phil and Phyllis as their like official logo, at least for Baseball Reference. If you go back, that is what is listed with the Phillies, is that one. So I didn't find when they switched over to just the P. I don't know when that was, but I didn't realize Phil and Phyllis were still, you know, so involved in the 70s. I thought that they were older. So yeah, that's the 1977 Philadelphia Phillies. It was very fun to learn about them. Let me know if you guys like this style of video. At first I was thinking about doing it more documentary style, but then I was like, I'd rather it be more casual, like we're just telling the story of the team, like we're sitting here talking about it. Because I don't know, I like doing it that way more. It feels more personal, I guess. So it was literally just I started looking up things about the 1977 Phillies. The internet's an amazing place, especially baseball. There's a lot of baseball websites that track a lot of history. Baseball's all about tracking stuff, so, and they always have been. So Baseball Reference has so much, and there's a lot of articles that are out there. So there was a lot to learn, a lot of information available, and I just, you know, took some notes on it and then sat down to film this. So I don't know if anybody out there watching remembers the 1977 Phillies. I think my demographic is a little younger than that, but hopefully you enjoyed learning about this team as much as I did. And let me know if you want me to keep doing videos like this, because I thought it was fun to put together. So we'll see who the wheel gives us next time. Thanks for watching.